can.
Perfect. It says it's live. We're live.
Okay. We're live. We are live. All right. Good morning, Australia, and hello, world. You're listening and watching live the IBGR network, which is International Business Growth Radio, and we are at our launch summit today. I'm Simone Douglas, your host for today's launch summit, and I will introduce myself in a bit. But first, let's meet my other fantastic hosts joining us today for the next hour of hard conversations and straight answers coming to you live from Australia. Throughout the summit, we'd love to hear from you. So if you've got questions or comments, please tag us on all the usual socials. But first up, we have, to my right, your left, I think, I'm joined by the indomitable Richard Miller, creative director for Crisp & Co, based here in Adelaide, South Australia, host of the fabulous podcast, The Madman and the Hospitalian, and your weekly on-air host Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Sydney time for building brands and selling stuff. Welcome, Richard.
Thanks, Simone. What a great introduction. Indomitable.
I thought you'd like
What does that mean? You know, just picked it out of the dictionary.
It's one of my favourite words.
Let's Google it.
Yeah, exactly. And next up, we also have Serena Johan, Executive and Partnership Coach for SJ Coaching, and your weekly on-air host for Build Your Core. And if you hadn't guessed the topic of her show, it is, of course, all about your people. And with more than 30 years experience in business, after spending her career climbing the corporate ladder, running her own business and juggling family and relationships, she pulls no punches, so is perfect for today's conversations. Welcome, Serena.
Thank you.
Pleasure. And you can catch her on air Thursdays at 10 a.m. Sydney time. And then finally, over here on my left, we have Mr. Russell Colburn, an entrepreneur and part-time CFO with the CFO Centre. So after working with Richard Branson and the Virgin Group in the 1990s, he came to Australia to start Virgin Blue. Since then, he has worked for multinationals, been an angel investor in startup businesses, and an advisor to local government on strategy and innovation. After 30 years as a member of the Chartered Association of Certified Accountants, Russell helps mentor the next generation of leaders through his work with the ACCA panel, and of course joins us on air weekly in his show, Your Money Machine, which is Mondays at what time?
9:30 in the morning in Adelaide time, which is 10 o'clock Sydney, 8 p.m. New York, depending on daylight savings and all the rest of it.
Because we're a global station. This is what makes it half the fun. So today I'm going to be tag teaming with Richard Miller, but first I should probably introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. So my name's Simone Douglas, CEO of Social Media AOK, publican of the Duke of Brunswick Hotel and executive director of BNI Adelaide North, host of Seriously Social, the podcast, author of the book by the same name and soon to be released to The Confident Networker, also your weekly on-air host for Seriously Social, the humanistic approach to sales and marketing, which is Wednesdays, 10 a.m. Sydney time. And on that note, Richard, you are in the hot seat.
Oh, gosh, really? Well, does that mean I've got to ask you some questions?
Well, you can do it that way if you like.
Okay. Well, why not? Well, I have one. So, because you and I have known each other for quite a while now, yes, and we both work in this this game that we call marketing, which everyone, it's a funny word, that, isn't it? Everyone. We've just been talking about the word everyone because everyone loves this and no one likes that.
Yeah.
But what does the humanistic approach mean?
Okay, so for me, the humanistic approach is really all about the fact that as we have more and more artificial intelligence, the capacity to automate marketing messaging, we're in danger of losing the connection to people and understanding that we're having conversations with real human beings that have emotional cues, that have needs and wants. And so if as business owners we lose that at the center of all of our marketing messaging and our sales processes and those things, we're going to enter into that burn and churn like headset where it's just like flipping the numbers and flipping the context until you get enough sales, which doesn't work in the long run. We know you burn all your networks in the process.
Yeah, because I guess that's what, if we're looking at the pros and cons of advertising and marketing, the con that always comes up for social media is that it is a inhumane medium, right? Because you've got so many friends on your Facebook account that aren't actual friends. So that's what turns people like Russ off of Facebook, because because Russ doesn't have a Facebook account. Everyone,
no, I killed one a few years ago when Cambridge Analytica came on the scene. So,
so Russ
forgive me for not wanting to be public.
Yeah. But what you've done there, I guess, with that humanistic approach, tagline and that methodology is you've taken away that potential negative from a sale, right?
Well, absolutely. And I think too, it's important to understand that when social media is done well, it's an other-centric medium.
Yeah.
It's designed to foster conversations and to support people in achieving the things that they're looking to achieve.
Yeah.
Yes, it's manipulated by psychology and all sorts of other things. And, Facebook is a behemoth. So is LinkedIn these days. It's become very Facebook-esque. In fact, they rolled out all the updates the other day. But that doesn't mean that we can't use it as a tool to achieve the things that we want to achieve in an ethical way. So,
and that's the key, isn't it? We talk about in our business, we talk about the advertising wheel having many spokes.
Yeah.
Everything has its place. Every media has its place. Where would you say holistically, generally, Facebook or social media in general has its place in a marketing campaign?
Look, so they as much as I hate the word funnel, it's very much in the discovery phase, top of funnel. But also then depending on which part of the medium it is, it also will move your customer through their journey and maintain those touch points with them so that you're consistently front of mind. I think one of the biggest challenges as business owners is the blurring of boundaries between what's personal and what's business. So, I often say when I'm running training courses, if you think that your personal profiles are personal and you're not being judged by anyone who knows you in business that's connected to you, then you're deluding yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're wrong. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, exactly right. And you just talked about updates. Gosh, they happen a lot. How does a normal human being keep on track with all of Facebook's updates?
Well, I'm not sure that you can as a normal human being, even as someone who lives and breathes it and teaches it every day. My guys will send me a message on Facebook in the morning going, this has happened overnight. This has been announced. So, we would read across the team of 6, we'd read, probably 30 articles a day and updates in Facebook, for business and all these different things. But they change the rules depending where you sit. So at agency, partner level, we're in a really good shape because we can open a live chat with a real human being and often get our problems resolved. But, I have a client, a coaching client who had an ad account where they've been spending for the last 7 years about $100,000 a month on Facebook ads, and their ad account got deactivated overnight and they still haven't been able to resolve it.
Why is that? Like, can you say?
New algorithms.
Right, gotcha.
So basically Facebook's gone, it's a low page score on their website.
Yeah, right.
And so when I jumped in on their website, I could identify a couple of things that were wrong with it.
Yeah.
But they're really going to have to kill that entire landing page, build an entire new landing page, and at this point a new ad account because we can't get Facebook to release it.
There's a lot of equity.
Yeah.
What's your stance? Because there's been a lot in the media about Facebook contributing or paying for news content, which all the other broadcasters have to do. What's your stance on that?
Look, I think it's one of those challenges, I suppose. Facebook is a medium and they want to be YouTube and your Google and all of these other mediums as well. The exposure argument comes into it, which is always a dangerous one and quite fractious in Australia. Russell, if you come and give me some finance advice, for exposure, I'll put you in my socials. It will be great. You're happy to give me all your time for free?
All my time
Bit of
for free.
exposure.
We're all charity workers here. Absolutely. Not for profit.
Profits, that's it. So I think it's there'll be middle ground there somewhere. If you've got producers of fantastic content that have big followings and high engagement, how do you monetize that? Facebook actually has ways that you can monetize it already. So if you're considered to be a publisher and you're publishing content and you're set up that way and you have enough fans, you can monetize that.
Which Russell doesn't, because he's not even on Facebook. So.
What I find most fascinating about Facebook changing the rules every 5 minutes is that how do you actually measure your return on investment? Because as an accountant, that's what I'm really concerned about, the KPIs. We can all be judged by the tyranny of metrics, but at the end of the day, there's got to be a return. You've got to actually understand how much you're spending to what you're receiving in cash generation.
See, that's the
sales
easy bit.
Spoken like a true
the easy bit.
Well,
because
that's exactly right.
But you can track absolutely where people have clicked through, when they've turned into leads, how many of those have converted, how much dollars in sales have been generated. My guys can tell me, last month for a tourism operator that does cruises on the Murray River, they generated $37,000 in sales for an $800 ad spend. So they know that they can track it. They know exactly where those bookings have come from and path of travel. But and
there lies the problem, because I think that you're so convinced that is exactly where the money's come from.
Yeah.
But what about the other channels that are feeding into that sale?
So the beauty of this is it's literally through a single URL booking link that's nowhere else. So, and if you track the conversions and trigger the conversions in their back-end booking engine, they can measure it. They tell us, not the other way around. So,
and when Facebook changes the rules in terms of what you can and can't do and how many words and this,
I'll have to roll with the punches.
Yes.
That's how that works. But I think it opens an interesting thing. And Serena, you can probably talk to this better than we can. That work-life balance thing with your people. So when you have people that are involved in managing all those channels and they don't get to switch off, how do you manage that process? I think that's a challenge for business owners.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a huge problem because we have access to so much information nowadays. The game has completely changed. We are no longer switching off. We are switched on 24/7, and it causes all sorts of other issues within, not just in the workforce, but also in terms of relationships with people. I'm not sure about you guys, but have you been out for dinner where you see people supposedly, going out for dinner together and they're all on their devices? So there's a real, I think, responsibility in terms of who we are in business to address that and to come up with solutions that are not, I guess, banning it, but more regulating it and saying, hey guys, let's have some time out from this. Let's have a conversation. Let's sit down. And that is what I talk about in my show about, we are humans after all, and we do need that human interconnective ability to, and there's so much information out there. It's so hard to digest. So where do you switch off? Where do you switch on? And I think it's a big conversation. I don't think we will have time for it today, but as leaders, we have a huge responsibility there to manage that for our team members.
I think it's spot on, because I think what Corona has taught us is that the value of human connection is so much more, more the social, the Facebooks, or the interactions on the phone. It's been so good to get back out there after Corona and actually interact with real humans on a one-to-one basis.
Yeah.
You just don't get that from Zoom calls and video calls.
No. You don't. And I think maybe everything's been put back in its box a little bit in some ways, but it is true to say, and I said it earlier, that everything has its place. It's not, social media is here to stay. I used to joke years ago that the internet is a passing fad because I used to sell TV ads. But I reckon I was wrong. But it is here to stay, and but it's about using it. And going back to your earlier question, Ross, about how do you know that something's worked? Henry Ford said in the 1920s, 50% of our marketing doesn't work, but I don't know which 50% it is. Because everything has its place, and it's not. Yes, direct links. Yes, you can track a sale and all of that. But if someone wasn't confident enough in the brand to have clicked on that link in the first place because they've seen some marketing elsewhere, then maybe they wouldn't have clicked on it. So there's all sorts of reasons why people purchase, and actually that's why we're in a job, because it's our job to kind of understand that and provide solutions to that effect. So that's a nice segue to your show, Simone. Tell us a bit about what you're going to be talking about in this season.
Also, this season's going to be everything to do with putting together a holistic and integrated sales and marketing strategy. So I think one of the biggest mistakes often that we make as business owners, once we're going kind of from that startup phase, we've got some staff, we've got some solidity, is that we don't excavate our brains and get everything that we know out of them into a strategy that we can communicate with other people and hold other people to account, because all of a sudden we have resources and we have teams. So we're going to look at what that looks like in terms of, are you servicing your existing customers in a way that surprises and delights them? What's your strategy for that? Are you building referral partnerships in a way that, will feed your business without having to do all the hard yards from an expensive marketing perspective? Are you smart marketing? So, one of the things that I love about the conversations that we have, Rich, is, traditional media is not dead. And, often with my clients, quite surprised because I'll go, well, have you considered radio? And they're like, but you do social media. I'm like, yes, but you can do a radio campaign, reach the listeners there. And then from there, I can back it in with a social campaign that targets people who are interested in that radio show that fit your demographic, or back TV in or print media. So I think one of the challenges, going back to what Russell was saying about, human connection and it being that face-to-face thing, that's where the kind of marketing and stuff that you do comes into play in force. So I think we'll cover all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. All right. Well, so this is a bit of a different format for us, isn't it? Because we had the desk set up and the whole radio set up going on, and then it turns out we're on the internet.
Yes.
Again. With video and everything. So Sarita, you're coming to us live from Melbourne. How's things over there?
Things are tricky, interesting, challenging. There's a lot, as you all are aware, a lot going on. And I think we're, a lot of people are really, finding it quite challenging to see past, in particular when other states are doing the almost quite normal type of business. So I guess it's more important than ever to really be able to support and to have a good look at your business right now on what is actually working and what hasn't been working, and rather, looking at it as an opportunity, in particular when it comes to people. Have we got the right people in the right places? Can we upskill? What else can we do in our business, and really using that time appropriately? So that's my view on it. I like to inspire people to look what's not, energy flows where attention goes. So where can you put your energy right now? What do you have control over versus what you have not? So that would be, but there's a lot of, as you can imagine, Melbourne CBD is pretty bleak at the moment. Yeah. There's not much going on there.
I think it's priceless when you say, what are the hidden talents that you don't know you have in your team? Because COVID-19, when we had shut down over here at the pub, I found out that my cleaner is a qualified sound engineer. And so it meant that I could get my podcast up and running and everything without any additional outlay. So, yeah, it's amazing the hidden talents in your team. So
did you exploit your cleaner?
Well done, Simone. Very creative.
It was priceless. He was like, Chris is amazing, but he was so excited go back to a skill set and have a play with skills that he had. And the only reason I found out is all of my podcast gear rolled up in boxes, and it sat in boxes at the bottom of my desk for about a week because I was too scared to bloody open it. I don't know how to work this stuff. And then Chris saw me starting to open the box because I'm like, it's ridiculous. We need to move on. I'm an adult. It's not that difficult. And he's like, oh my God, you've got a Yeti and this, that, the other. And I'm like, oh, do you understand all of the things? He's like, yeah, do you want me to set it up for you? And then we got talking, and the rest is history now. He's been invaluable, and he's so much happier at work because he gets to do two things that he enjoys doing, and he's valued, across the organization in ways that are important to him.
So I mean, that's a really important point, that you found hidden talents within your team. But COVID's taught us not just that people can change very quickly, but organizations have to as well. And organizations changed and pivoted and changed direction extraordinarily. I mean, one of my clients, they produce soft balls and other bits and pieces for gym balls and what have you, pivoted into masks. So straight away they're importing masks from Taiwan, and one of their largest clients is MGM Grand in USA.
No way.
So they supply them with thousands and thousands of masks.
And then you've got gin dealers producing hand sanitizer
And I have a similar story, Russ. Like, one of my clients were in apparel, and they were creating gowns and for the hospitals, and that wasn't taking off, but mask was. So their whole entire business, they've had their best year in terms of their growth, because they were agile enough and quick enough to go, like, rather than sitting and going like, what do we not have? What can we do? And we sat down and we're like, what other options? How can we put these people to work in a good way? And, their business boomed, which has allowed them other opportunities they probably wouldn't have had if it hadn't been for what just happened.
Absolutely. Russell, when you're looking at things like COVID that falls out of the sky and we all have to shut down or pivot or do all these other magical words, from a finance and a CFO perspective, what are the kind of critical things that, as a business owner, when your business model's been turned upside down, what should you look at first?
Well, I think one of the things that I always say is never waste a good crisis. A good crisis, and this is the biggest and best crisis we've had in a long time. I mean, seriously, it's affected so many people in so many bad ways. But it's provided so many opportunities. So the first thing I'd suggest people do is plan. The second thing I ask them to do is to plan. And the third thing, Plan. But in all seriousness, planning is the key to it, and it's looking forward. It's making sure that you have an action plan that meets the environment you're in now, and takes advantage of the assets you've got and the people and the resources and everything else that you can tune to your plan. So whenever anything comes and changes, you need to analyze the situation you're in, understand what the opportunities are. It's a good time to have a good strategic headspace, get out there and understand what it is in your team, like your cleaner, who can add value to the business, and plan. And once you've got that plan in place, execute it. And that's always the hardest thing, executing a plan. And a CFO, what we really do is hold the owner to account. So my role is to sit with the owners of the businesses and the senior management and the executives and say, well, have you actually achieved those goals you said we were going to achieve last month? So we're going to achieve more customers, or if we're going to put out a social media plan or whatever it may be, have we achieved that? Have we spent the money in the right places? Have we achieved the results we're expecting? And if not, why not? And can we then address how we're going to change that? So it's about planning.
Where does risk analysis, calculated risk analysis, come into that, I suppose? Because for me, definitely across the three businesses. So one was fairly secure, membership organisation. So members are, have a 12-month membership. So long as I managed their expectations through that, we were okay. Social media, okay. We took an immediate 40% hit on revenue because 40% of our clients were hospitality and tourism and type businesses. So I let them all out of their contracts because I was like, they've got no revenue. I know what that feels like. And then the pub went from doing very, very healthy dollars, so upwards of like $30,000 a week, to $0 for shutdown and pivoting. So for us, one of the risk analysis was how much cash flow do we have across the three businesses to keep everything going? But what are the other,
So risks don't fall just into, as you probably work this one out, don't fall into just have we got enough cash. It's all about whether or not the business will survive, and how you can put a survival plan in place. On my show, I talk about survival capital and growth capital, the differences between the two. So one of the things that I think people really need to understand is that working capital is a complete waste of money. I'd much rather spend my working capital on a boat or golf clubs or something much than
I'd rather spend it on your boat if I can go on it.
Well,
me too. I'm in.
And we were on it yesterday, which is fun. But the point is that working capital is wasted capital. You'll expand your sales and your business to such a point where you're actually funding somebody else's business through your creditors. So what we try and do is look at how you can pull back in and reduce the risks of your creditors going bad. So we look at all your risk matrix. And we put together a risk matrix in terms of creditors, assets, key people, key personnel. What happens to you if you don't turn up for work? What happens to your business if you're not able to turn up for work? Have you systemized the processes?
I've replaced myself pretty much, but if tomorrow my general manager didn't turn up for work, that would be a different story.
Have you the business is the question I'd have. And how have you systemized that business, and how you put in place the opportunity for you to work on the business and not in the business, as we always say. And then your plan would include your risk management profile and mitigation of those risks to ensure that the business can actually perform without you there. And we do a bit of scenario planning. So we look at what happens if sales go up 25%, down 25%, but down 100% is something we probably didn't plan for. I don't think anyone would have planned for that. But if it does go down 100%, where do you stand? What do you do?
Exactly. And I think there's so many business owners out there that's been the reality that they faced, and thank God for JobKeeper in a lot of respects. But I think it sounds like season 3 is definitely the one to listen to for you, for everyone that's going through all this stuff right now. But Rich, season 3, building brands and selling stuff. So you're kind of that next level up when it comes to sales and marketing.
You're only saying that because it's true.
So, realistically, how are you going to help me get from that stage 3 business to a solid stage 4?
Well, that's a great question, Simone, that I wasn't really expecting. No, look, as I've said it 1,000 times now, marketing it's a blend of research, it's a blend of statistics mixed with gut feeling and empathy. And if you've got all of those things as a marketer, then you can figure out a winning formula. And it's unfortunately, it's nothing like numbers. You know, nothing is guaranteed up front. But all you can say is that, you know, from experience and with the research, you pretty much suggest that something's gonna pop. And it's understanding what mediums are the right mediums to get to the right audience. But before you do any of that, and I used to sell TV airtime, and then I went into writing TV scripts and all of that. And then I figured out along the journey that unless you understand someone's business holistically first, don't worry about the rest, because you could be throwing good money after bad with marketing, and then you're just selling stuff. Well, I'm just selling stuff. So we take the approach. The first pillar of our business is business insight, followed by creative content, and lastly, strategic communication. Because the first question that any client asks me is, how do I get on radio? How do I get on TV? Should I be on this shit? That's the last question, because there's audience everywhere. But because we spend 90% of our marketing budget on media, it's the first question we ask as the person that's paying the bill. But the first question is, do you understand your brand? Do you understand what you're trying to sell? And do you understand who you're trying to sell it to?
Yeah.
So unless you can answer those questions first, forget the rest. Once you've got that figured out, and what we do is we go through an exercise of building a brand pyramid. So we'll ask the questions such as, what is the vision of your business? What are the barriers of getting where you want to be? Who's your target market? And what's your positioning statement? What's the words that your people internally speak to describe your business when they're in an elevator? And what are the words that you print on your business cards or your vehicle? So once you've got the language of your business figured out, then you move on to the content. So you might need a new website. You might need to build a new TV commercial. You might need a radio ad. You might need some social media content, design, all the rest of it. Then we figure out a communication strategy. So it's about taking what you know about your business now, having been through all of that growth, because we've been through all the exciting stuff of coming up with the name and the product and the service and selling it to people. So how do we now pull all that together and take it really seriously and say, what is the actual future of this business and how do we market it to people so they take it seriously?
That sounds a little exciting, and like I'm going to have to listen to your show every week as well.
Well, I hope so, Simone. You're on before me, so just keep it tuned in.
Keep it tuned in, it's true. But Serena, I guess, you know, one of the things that Richard mentioned there that's critical is that your people can tank that entire process at the end of the day if we get it wrong. So what are you going to be teaching us in season 3 to make sure that our people support all of these goals that we've got?
Absolutely, because you know everything is great until we have to put the people into play, right? And it starts very, very much so at the start of the recruitment process. You know, having a clear understanding of where your business is going and what you need, and that seems to be at times a difficult conversation, because as Russell mentioned, you know, the plan is often not either. It's either there and not updated, or it's half there and has got quite a bit of gaps. So when people are growing their businesses, they get busier and they instantly go, we need more people, versus, okay, what are we actually looking for? Where are our gaps? Let's just sit down and do an analysis on that. So in season 3, we're going to basically create that story from start to finish. So where do we start? What do we need in terms of the people, and getting really clear on that, and not just from, and I loved your story, Simone, about the untapped skills. If you hadn't had that conversation, you might have missed out on an amazing opportunity. So again, for us as business leaders, we need to ask good questions. And I'm often blown away by how many businesses still have a very poor recruiting process, and then are surprised that when they onboard people, they're actually not generating the returns or the expectations, meeting the expectations. So in season 3, we're going to talk all about, you know, getting that framework right, getting the right standard operating procedures in place. So what do we actually expect from our people? Are we clear on that? And it's not a set and forget. And I guess that's for everything that we're talking about today. We've got to keep it moving. It's an evolving it's an alive process of, you know, how often do we check in with people? How often do we review those PDs? How often does everybody know where we're going? I think that is a really big question. Some of the businesses that I've worked with, that, you know, management knows exactly where they're going, but their team doesn't. So that creates disconnect. So it's about connecting all those dots so we can really set people up for success and having them thrive in your business. Because if people are doing well and are happy and get joy out of what they're doing, then your business will automatically, thrive as well. And at the end of the day, what we're here for is to acquire clients and retain clients. And we can only do that if we're all rowing in that same direction. So that's, in big summary, high level, what we'll be talking about in season. I'm super excited to bring that to you guys.
Good.
And I love the fact that I'm here in this room and on the internet with all these left-brainy type people, and I'm a right-brain person. And you're all talking structure. You're all talking about structures, systems, processes, and that's my world.
Yeah.
My world is all about making sure you have the hygiene factors in place, that you've got everything covered off in legal terms and governance, and then you've got the operational pieces in place. Yeah. And then you've got time to look at the strategic side of the business. And that's all about putting a structure in place. And at the CFO Centre, we've got what we call the 12-box framework. And we love boxes in accountancy. I mean, if you don't think we love boxes, just look at our spreadsheets. We just love boxes. Everything's rightly put there. So a 12-box framework is something that we use in our organisation to make sure that we can help business owners achieve the goals they want to achieve. And I think what you're talking about there, having a structure in place for the personnel, structure in place for marketing, it's all music to my ears.
Yeah, good. Well, look, I mean, not every marketing person believes in that level of structure. Most ad agencies, in fact, that in my experience, most ad agencies were started by creatives who write ads. And they just decided they wanted to do that for themselves and then built teams. My business was started by business people who've run businesses and then learn advertising afterwards. So I describe myself as a pragmatic creative, because there is a lot of practicality to advertising and marketing. I'm not disrespecting my peers, but there's a lot of fluff around marketing. People consider it to be a fluffy industry, but there is a lot of substance to it if you do it right. And I've been guilty of it myself. I've been in the shower or lay in bed and I've come up with an idea for a client. And I thought, that's cool. And then I've gone and made it, and it actually didn't fulfill the objectives. It was just a really cool piece of creative. You'll see stuff on telly and you go, what drugs were they on when they wrote that ad? Yes. But because it doesn't address the need. So if you can address the need with the advertising as well as making it cool and creative, then that's a winning formula.
Yeah. And Russ, that's a really good point, because it's not just the addressing the needs, it's across the whole organization, isn't it? If we look at business, we're talking about different components, but they're all moving parts and they've got to move in alignment with one another. So if we don't address what the business needs in terms of people, we're going to end up with the wrong people in the wrong seats, which then will create a bigger issue. We might have all the plans, but if the people are not executing, we're going to find ourselves in troubled water. So it's a lot that need as it is, what is the need?
I think the need does also come from emotion, and all of this comes together with emotion. I mean, many years ago, a very good mentor of mine told me that to create a high-performing team is a very simple definition. You just get people emotionally engaged with a common vision.
Absolutely.
That's it. Simple as that. But to actually provide that function, to get that functionality in place, to actually get people emotionally engaged is hugely difficult unless you've got that inspiration.
You have to have a 6-word story. That's the truth.
Thank you very much. There we are.
All of my
I thought I'd segue into that one for you.
All of my businesses, that's what they have. And so 6 words is really easy to understand. And its one job is to sum up the complete emotional felt sense of what this business creates. So with the Duke of Brunswick, for argument's sake, it's the outside world doesn't matter here. So it's a pub. Anyone that walks in there, who you are is absolutely enough, and the entire outside world melts away. The staff's one job is to contribute to that story, and they all buy into that. So we're the first deaf-friendly hotel in South Australia. We're gluten-free. We're veteran-friendly because we've put all of those things in place. But if you go and visit, it's the staff that build that story. All the socials and the marketing, everything flows in.
And does that feed from your values?
Yes,
is that where it comes
Yeah,
from?
just like to say, the core values.
So that core value, and I think, when you have a single purpose for being and you can distill that, then all of your business stuff takes care of itself. So mine's connecting people to people for mutual benefit.
Yeah. So 25 years ago, I worked in the Virgin Group when they were distilling their values, which was quite extraordinary, because we walked through the office and suddenly there'd be a coaster on the table with a value.
Right.
And then there's a mug with a value on. And then on all the doors, they stick circles of values.
Yeah, right.
He says smashing them. So 25 years later, the Virgin values are fun, innovation, caring, honesty, and value for money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the 5 values that we work to. And we would recruit to those values, and I'd be an accountant to those values. And we drive the business along those values. Yeah. And I think if you have a values-driven organization, you can come up with your 6-word story. Yeah. And your 6-word story defines perfectly who you are and what your purpose is and why you want, what your vision is as an organization.
Yeah. And that's one of the things we discover in a brand pyramid.
Yeah.
That's part of that exercise. Yes.
And you can't hire in if they don't fit the values. So if they're missing one, you can't bring them into the team because they break the team. So you hire on the values and then train on the missing skills.
And I think the other thing is that's important that we brief them, because I actually shared a story the other day about 2 different companies that I went to visit to buy a car, and both had their values displayed on the wall. And one was completely not acting from start to finish and had no alignment with their values whatsoever. It was all about integrity and listening to the client. And I had said to the salesperson, I'm not buying a car today. And of course, they pushed me all the way to the general sales manager that came down to make me an offer. And car dealership B, where I went to, they had the values on the wall and they were doing it from start to finish. They embodied it, they lived it. It was an incredible experience as a client to go in there. So it's not enough to have them on a piece of paper or, have them coasted around unless we really embody them and get people involved in that conversation. Hey, this is what we stand for. How does it impact our client experience? So that's
just words. Otherwise, it's just words, isn't it? Anyone, as I was saying earlier, anyone can write words. But to live them is a different scenario.
Yeah, agreed.
So if we were living our own values when it comes to our individual shows and our reason for being part of this entrepreneurial community that is IBGR, why are you here, Rusty?
Why am I here? Well, that's a very good question. I mean, it's the CEO. I've got a very different position, I think, to most people who are on this radio station. Many of the organization or people here are representing their own businesses, whereas I work within an organization that has 700 CFOs across the globe. I don't own the business. I represent the business. I'm a principal within that organization. And I've got to a point within my life, and I know I don't look it yet, but I am approaching
40.
40. Yeah. Thank you, Richard. I'm getting on in life. And having been an accountant since I was obviously 10 years old.
10 years.
Yes. Qualified accountant, that is, of course. And I'd been through, I must have started university when I was 6.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So having got to that position, I feel that it's time to give back. And I've done that through a number of ways. I've been elected locally as the local elected representative for the ACCA. We mentioned that earlier on. I wear my badge, my pin. Where's the camera? There we go. The ACCA are the largest accountancy body in the world. I joined them 30 years ago. They were just another one of the chartered accountancy bodies. There's, Chartered Accountants Australia, New Zealand. There's the IKEW, which is the UK version. There's CPA, which is the American version. And the ACCA, when I joined it, was just one of the brands of accounting. Now they're the largest accountancy body in the world. We have 250,000 members, over 500,000 students and affiliates that are still studying and haven't quite qualified to become full members yet. And the ACCA's bringing to business best practice, best ways of operating, best ways of working. And my role within the community is to bring CPDs, continuous professional development, to my members, and just bring that connection of the members to the organization. The ACCA is a very collaborative and networky type organization where we believe in the power of connections and the power of networks. And I think accountants are the glue that hold business together. We're the ones that have to balance the risks and opportunities between sales, marketing, and operations. The salespeople will go, we can sell everything. We can do anything you like.
Fix the mock-ups we've made.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the operations people have to come in behind you, sweep up all the mess.
Yeah.
And the accountant is the one that hold the glue together and put it all in a nice book. So I quite enjoy giving back. So part of that is I've owned businesses, I've run companies, I've probably been the world's worst consultant.
Because you keep buying the company.
Correct. Yes. I either end up buying the company I work for or actually being employed by them if it goes further. So having been the world's worst consultant, what I like to try and do is to allow other people to learn from my mistakes. So the CFO Centre, we work part-time in organisations as their CFO, holding the owners to account and making sure that there is a plan and that plan is being executed.
So Russell's here to give back and demystify the finance sector. Serena, why are you part of IBGR?
Before we go into that, we at the top of the hour, we will have a short break. So just so that people know that we don't all of a sudden disappear. Donna is messaging us. Look, it's very similar to Russ in the sense of throughout my whole career, I've always done the giving back, no matter what level I was at, whether I was my own business or working for others. I think it's a very important component. And in particular with IBGR, we've got a lot of, knowledge and skills and expertise that we are sharing with entrepreneurs. And I think when you're on that journey, I always say, if you really want to get to know yourself, you become an entrepreneur. You start your own business because it will display parts of you that you probably didn't even know existed. And you need good support and across all areas of business, because we're all going to lean towards and have preferences towards what we're good at. And that is my view. For me, people is everything. I'm crazy about studying people and looking at their behaviors and how they can impact the whole of the business. And so IBGR was the perfect vehicle to get to a large audience and sharing that experience and knowledge that I have that will help them to get ready for that next stage of having people work independently. So that's my.
And the indomitable Mr.
Can someone look that up?
Oh, I love it.
Can you look up Indomitable before we come back to you?
I'm doing it right now.
I think the T you're missing in the word. It could be indomitable.
It is.
I ain't got a clue. And I'm a words guy. Well, look, I mean, obviously, the whole giving back thing and all that is true for me as well. I think that from a selfish point of view, Simone, you know me well enough to know that I do quite like the sound of my own voice. So hearing it in headphones once a week isn't a bad thing for me. But I think from another selfish point of view, what this does for me, similarly to what BNI did for me, is that even though I feel like I know my own business, it forces me every week to research the subject that I'm about to deliver. And then it gives me some hints and tips on clarity and all that stuff. So the things that I talk about every week, of course, I kind of know about that stuff, but it is easy to forget. We've probably forgotten more than we know. So it reminds you what it is all about, and it brings some clarity back to your own business, as well as helping other people out there hopefully bring clarity to theirs. So that's partly why I'm doing it. And I love my subject. I'm genuinely passionate about marketing, and I've done loads of other things in my life, and I've never settled on any career path the way I've settled on this one. I will never do anything else. I will be carried out of this place in a box. So, I love talking about it. I love everything about it. I genuinely believe in it, and I want to share it.
Yeah, and that's what makes your show so fun.
Thank
you.
Is
that passionate about it.
And what about you, Simone? What's your?
It seemed like a good idea.
At the time.
That's what she said.
But I think, realistically, one of the benefits that I've had in business is so many connections, both locally, nationally, and globally, that have been built out of relationships and saying yes to opportunities. And this opportunity came from a connection I made out of LA 5 years ago. Brandon Suber, who's one of the on-air talent out of the States, he said, would you like to do a weekly radio station on marketing? I'm like, absolutely, I would, because I talk about marketing all day, but talking about it in a way that actually helps business owners to connect emotionally with their customers and their referral partners and their teams, and allows them to feel like they're part of that community, Because I think when you first start up in business, you're all alone. Sometimes, you know, if you're you may well have an understanding partner or spouse, or you may not, but the reality is often they don't understand exactly what you're going through. Your friends who have paychecks week in, week out, they mean well and they're lovely human beings, but they're not necessarily going to understand the fact that you've been up all night because you've got a $30,000 bus you have to pay, you know, like this week, and all the normal other things that you need to do. Or even just, you know, the BAS hangover, I call it, when you pay the ATO quarterly, and I, you know, I'll have like $50,000 to $80,000 go out of my bank accounts that day, and I go downstairs. Thankfully, I own a pub. I go downstairs.
Get a shot.
The staff take one look at me and go, "Is it whiskey day today?" I'm like, "Yes." You know, being able to talk to other business owners and support them through that journey, because often we don't have anybody to talk to about this stuff. So yeah, so that's what brings me here. And I think it would be a really good idea now, coming up to the top of the hour, just to we've all got about 30 seconds to do a quick plug for our shows, because obviously we're all on air and it's season 3. And if I get this right, I'm going to start with me. So you can catch me, Seriously Social, on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Sydney time, 9:30 Adelaide time, closely followed by Richard on.
That is correct, at 11 o'clock Eastern time, 10:30 Adelaide time, building brands and selling stuff on a Wednesday, following Simone.
And then Serena, we have you
on Thursday from 10 a.m., 11 a.m. Eastern time, Sydney time.
Yeah, and what's the name of your show again?
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Build Your Core. Build Your Core is my show name.
Yeah, so talking all things people, and then we cycle back around to you, Russell.
And before all that happens on a Monday morning, 9:30 Adelaide time, 10 o'clock Sydney, you'll catch Your Money Machine with me, Russell Colburn, your host. And
we've got radio voices all the time.
Yes, and Your Money Machine gets under the hood of your business engine.
Damn straight it does.
There you go, and that's exactly.
I got a bit distracted because I found the word indomitable and I wanted to share it before we got off air. Impossible to subdue or defeat. I think that sums it all up.
Yep.
That's a very adequate description.
Thank you very much.
And I might, if you don't mind, Simone, just quick shout out to, if there is anyone watching or listening to this who feels that they can add and contribute as a host, particularly in Australia, we are looking for talented hosts. Look, we're all busy. All of us here own businesses. We're all senior people. We're all very time poor. But if you can find time to do this, it is a massive benefit both to yourself and to other people. So get in touch with the station, IBGR.network.
So thanks for joining us all. We've reached the top of the hour, and you will catch us on IBGR.network live on radio. So check out the website and you'll be able to click listen now. And thanks for joining us this morning. End.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to push end.
Push end. He gets out of the shot and makes it go.